the very end of a summer that was all too short, the old man I was living with passed away. Even after all the years we spent together, I never knew his name. Later that evening, I dug a shallow grave in the front yard of our home and buried him there. At that moment, I was truly alone in the world.
In many ways, Fragile Dreams, Farewell Ruins of the Moon embodies my thoughts on the Wii itself. Enormous creative potential that, when properly utilized, creates unmatched creative brilliance, but is frequently relegated to the disappointing realm of gimmicks, repetition, and mediocrity. Some elements within Fragile Dreams shine as some of the best examples of video games as art I've ever experienced. But many of the design elements are anachronisms, harkening back to the less fondly remembered aspects of bygone gaming eras. Because I found this fascinating game so imbalanced, I want to do this review a little bit differently than normal. Instead of examining it piece by piece, such as separating sound, gameplay, story, etc., I'd like to split the discussion into the good, and then the bad, and then how those two pieces fit together as a complete experience. The protagonist is a young boy named Seto, one of the few remaining humans in a desolated post-apocalyptic world. In the opening minutes of the game, you are taught the basic mechanics of using the Wiimote as your flashlight to guide you through the dark world. Fireflies with an eerie green luminescence hover around objects of importance, attracted to the energy of fleeting remnants of memories. As you make your way from the observatory through the library and get used to the controls, you are thrown into the unexpected emotional genius of Fragile Dreams' writing and the setting. Seto's only companion in the world, a nameless old man, has died, leaving Seto to bury him and depart in search of other survivors.
Already be gone. Before, I didn't really care if I was dead or alive. I never considered myself worthy of living, and yet I knew not even death could atone for my sins. You have no idea how hard it was for me to even write you this letter. It's strange, really, for having wasted so much of my life. Now that the end is finally in sight, I never dreamed I'd feel like this. Only the time I spent with you gave meaning to my worthless life.
With this, the main themes of the game are set in place: loneliness, isolation, and the power of direct human contact.
I touched her. No, wait! Don't go! On my journey through the world, all of the people I thought I saw slipped away like they were just a mirage. But that girl, her cheek was warm to the touch.
Every second of the opening hours is saturated with these powerful themes and a perfect blend that every aspect contributes to. The sound design is haunting and atmospheric, often leaving you in quiet isolation with only the sounds of your footsteps and the sounds of cicadas or dripping water or other small appropriate atmospheric touches. But as soon as danger approaches or another emotional element is introduced, the inspired soundtrack intricately weaves the music into the scene without an abrupt intrusion of the ambient sounds. The entire soundtrack is hauntingly beautiful, and the astonishing opening still brings tears to my eyes. The wash of purples and blues across the dark, desolate ruins of human society are impressively painted across a world that defies the normal expectations of a post-apocalyptic setting. Rather than creating images of wanton destruction and rot, the world feels more like a ghostly memory of a past world, slowly fading as a dream world creeps across its dissipating desolation. This is a world of sorrow, populated by memories that feel almost foreign, as the forlorn relics that encapsulate them have a sense of being windows into another reality, when in truth they are isolated fragments of time. Throughout the world, you'll find various mystery items that can be taken to bonfires and set within the flames to unlock their stories. Bonfires act as save points, healing stations, and a place to purchase new equipment, and to organize your inventory. It was a brilliant choice to force the player to unlock these mystery items at the bonfire, rather than at will wherever the item is discovered. The items can be anything from an origami crane to a child's shoe, really anything. Each item contains one of 22 stories written by a team of 19 different writers. Each story is a memory, a fragment of the life of the item's owner, eternally trapped within it, until the light of the flame illuminates the hidden glimpse into the past. The bonfires are beacons of hope within the dark, sorrowful setting, so it is fitting that Seto should read these here. They are as a fleeting moment of comfort and companionship that explore the whole of humanity. If you collect all 22 stories, you will experience joy, rage, misery, loneliness, you'll laugh, you'll cry, experience love, all in a way that makes you wonder as you make your way through the darkness about the past existences of these places. Several of these memories are good enough to stand on their own as short stories. You think about the people who were once here, and the world feels alive. Yet, you are alone, mimicking the isolation of a modern world where we are surrounded by strangers lost in our own isolated reality, craving contact and companionship. Just a touch, a brush of the fingertips to know we are truly alive. The enemies you encounter will range from colorful jellyfish-like apparitions to ghostly hounds, menacing appendages jutting out from windows and mirrors, and, later in the game, several more vicious and monstrous foes. Amongst these enemies you will also find friends. The first person Seto comes across is a silver-haired girl who becomes an obsession, a constant goal, to find her again after she is frightened away by your first contact. As the game progresses, it becomes more clear that Seto's obsession is less about the girl herself, and more about the companionship she represents. You'll have various interactions with ghosts with intriguing backstories: the mischievous crow, a quirky, enigmatic, chicken-headed man who wanders the world collecting and trading equipment, and your first true partner, an AI called PF. PF introduces some interesting gameplay elements. Fragile Dreams makes better use of the Wii's hardware than any other game I've played. One such usage is a little speaker in the Wii mode itself. Certain sounds will come through the speaker in your hand rather than the TV, depending on where you face your flashlight. This allows for a consistent background sound design throughout the entire area, while realistically adding a second layer of sound, such as the sound of insects or the creak of a rusty hinge, that change in tone and volume depending on how close you are to the sound and what direction you're facing. There are also numerous instances in which you are following a specific sound, such as trying to find the source of a far-off voice. The voice will sound through the Wiimote speaker and will be louder as you point your flashlight in the direction of the voice. Sort of like a game of hot and cold with sound.
Is someone there?
Yes, over here. I am here. Please, come quickly. I am here. Please help me.
Also, when you have a companion with you, PF and later a female ghost, you can raise the remote to your ear and that companion will speak to you directly through that speaker, often giving you clues regarding your current goal. Raising the Wiimote to your ear activates a sensor indicating that the Wiimote is in the vertical position to activate that commentary from your companion. Motion and sound continually play a part in your exploration of the environment as the crumbling world around you presents various obstacles to your progression. You'll climb and crouch and squeeze your way through tight corners, push through boxes, weave your way around mazes, examine puzzles, and there are even a couple sections where you have to very slowly creep across the ground as it threatens to crumble beneath you. Survival horror elements such as limited on-hand inventory space, forcing you to make hard choices between carrying another healing item or picking up that new weapon you found and hoping you make it to the next bonfire, and breakable equipment are welcome additions to the gameplay. Perhaps the most important part of the game's design I've left for last: the usage of light. Fragile Dreams' usage of light is its most interesting feature as it expertly melds a visual presentation with gameplay. The play of light and color in the shadows is the final touch that truly brings this world to life. While there are several segments of the game that take place in daylight, the vast majority of the game takes place in various stages of night and interior darkness. Your flashlight is your main gameplay mechanic, as it not only lights your way, but can have numerous effects on the environment itself, especially in regard to its upgraded forms later on in the game and its mechanics while interacting with spirits. Now at this point it would seem that Fragile Dreams is a bit of a masterpiece, but it's really not. As an example of playable art, it's magnificent, but as a game, it's bogged down by some terrible choices. For starters, the limited inventory space along with breakable weapons is a necessary addition that adds to the complexity of the gameplay in terms of strategizing and making choices, and a lot of different weapon types add to this as well. But the problem is that those mystery items, those items that contain memories, also take up valuable on-hand inventory space. There is such a strong focus on story elements that I felt compelled to get the majority of those memories, even on my first playthrough. But to accomplish this, I would often find myself fighting with broken weapons or leaving other valuable equipment behind. The only way to have both was to constantly backtrack to bonfires to see the memories, and then race back to reclaim my equipment. This by itself isn't too much of a hassle, just a minor nuisance really, but it's coupled with a frustrating level of backtracking and fetch quests for a game that's only 10 to 15 hours long. Some of the mystery and curiosity the game invoked in the early hours was lost later on in the game after backtracking through the same area for the fourth time. The issue is exacerbated by the poor enemy placement, limited variety, and constant regeneration. There are frequently far too many enemies in isolated clusters. It would be different if they were a consistent threat, but overall the game is fairly easy, with a few exceptions later on in the game. Also, the majority of enemies respawn when you return to an area. The final issue is the lack of variety. There's a disappointingly small number of enemy types. Individually, none of these issues are more than minor flaws, but when you put them all together, you get a long stretch of the game where you're backtracking through previously explored areas, fighting far too many of the same old enemies just for a fetch quest. This becomes quickly tiresome, as does the repetition of certain things like playing tag with an antagonist, which is fun at first, but kept going for far too long. Repetition is the game's biggest flaw. Something that is at first beautiful and mysterious is not the fourth or fifth time you see it. While on the whole, the story and characters are wonderfully written, with superb voice acting, the game suddenly falls apart as you near the climax. Some storylines, like the revelation of who the Chicken Man truly is, are heart-wrenching, but other characters' storylines simply slip away when they feel like they were going to go a bit further, and there's even a death that was played out as if it was one of the saddest moments in the game, but it's with a character who hardly had any screen time. What, to me, is the most frustrating part is how these stretches are sandwiched between segments of sheer brilliance that serve as a constant reminder of how good the game could be. The oddest thing about these flaws is that they are all commonly associated with an inexperienced development team, but this was co-developed by Tri-Crescendo and Namco Bandai, both experienced developers. It feels like too much attention and effort went into creating a unique experience rather than the game aspect. It feels as if the writer and the development team lost their way partway through. They had a stroke of genius that they weren't quite sure how to end properly, and the gem they created wasn't quite polished enough to shine the way it could have. Fragile Dreams Farewell Ruins of the Moon is as frustrating as it is majestic and alluring. On one hand, it's a statement that you can whine all you want about HD, 1080p, and hyperrealism, but artistry and imagination have and will always trump superior tech. Its opening hours and glimmers of wonder throughout the second half are an emotional art piece, comparable to watching Grave of the Fireflies. But on the other hand, it's an okay game with a bizarre mix of excellent usage of the Wii's hardware and control mechanics, meshed with poor enemy usage and quest designs. In the end, if you own a Wii, you must play this game. It's a unique experience that shows the often neglected potential of the Wii. But perhaps, like I did, you'll reboot the game after finishing it, replay those first few hours, and sit there wondering how magical a game this could have been had it reached its full potential.